JJ, put that motherfucker in. Put that little bitch in. Please put him in.
The Rockets coach, Ime Udoka, was reportedly caught mocking Bronny James live during a game, and the clip quickly grabbed attention. Bronny didn't stay quiet and fired back, but his reaction may have made things worse. Now, with concerns about his play and pressure from Redick, suspension talks are heating up. Here's how it all went down. The 7-second clip that broke the internet. Let me set the scene for you. March 18th, 2026, Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. The Los Angeles Lakers and the Houston Rockets are locked into a game that was supposed to be competitive, and for most of the night, it really was. But with about 30 seconds left on the clock and the Lakers comfortably ahead by 7 points, something happened on the sideline that had absolutely nothing to do with field goals, free throws, or defensive rotations. Something that, within the span of 12 hours, would explode across every single corner of the internet simultaneously. Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube, Facebook, you name it. A moment so small in real time that it lasted all of 7 seconds on screen. A moment that, depending on who you ask, was either one of the funniest things to ever happen on an NBA sideline or one of the most disrespectful exchanges the league has witnessed in years, and possibly both at the same time, because somewhere in those final 30 seconds of a game the Rockets were already losing, Houston's head coach Ime Udoka, a man who has never in his life been described as shy about expressing himself, apparently turned toward Lakers head coach Redick, who was standing on the other side of the hardwood, and said something. And the broadcast cameras, doing what broadcast cameras do, caught it. And thanks to the highly specific and time-honored art of NBA sideline lip reading, a tradition as old as courtside microphones themselves, the internet translated what Udoka allegedly said, posted it everywhere, and absolutely sent everyone sideways for the next 48 hours straight. Let that sit with you for a second.
JJ, put that motherfucker in. Put that little bitch in. Please put him in.
A coach, a losing coach, in the final seconds of a game that is already, functionally, over. Turning to the opposing head coach, not screaming at a referee, not calling a play, not consoling a player, but apparently pleading, urgently, almost desperately, for Redick to put in a specific player. And based on the timing, based on the context, based on who was sitting at the end of the Lakers bench that night in street clothes with absolutely 0 NBA minutes logged in that game, the internet reached a unanimous, thunderous, 4 million view verdict on who Udoka was talking about. Bronny James, the 21-year-old second-year guard, LeBron James's son, the same Bronny James who had just recorded his 4th consecutive DNP, coach's decision in that stretch. The same Bronny James who had not scored a single NBA point since March 1st. The same Bronny James who spends as much time with the South Bay Lakers down in the G League as he does riding the pine on the actual Lakers bench. And here was Ime Udoka, the head coach of the opposing team, the man on the losing side, apparently using the garbage time dead moments of a decided game to mock LeBron's kid through Redick, essentially saying, your bench is packed with players who can't even get in during a comfortable win, so why not throw the scrub in? What have you got to lose? Now, before we go any further, let's be really precise about something, because precision matters here more than almost anything else. The viral clip posted by A Full Court Pass, which racked up over 4.2 million views, 7,800 likes, 201 reposts, and more than 1,200 bookmarks within hours of being posted on March 19th, 2026, shows a real and verified sideline exchange. The footage is authentic, pulled directly from broadcast. What is not confirmed with absolute certainty is the exact content of what Udoka said, because there is no official hot mic audio backing up the lip read interpretation. What you are watching in that clip is an interpretation, a lip read, a dominant one that thousands of people across multiple platforms arrived at independently. Some commenters speculated Udoka might have been referring to LeBron specifically, or to a different bench player entirely. But overwhelmingly, the narrative that stuck, the one that won the meme war, was Bronny. What is absolutely not in dispute is the scoreboard. The Lakers won 124-116. It was their 7th straight victory. Luka Doncic finished with 40 points, 9 rebounds, and 10 assists. LeBron James added 30 points on 13 of 14 shooting, an almost absurd 92.9% from the field, including 2 of 2 from 3. The Rockets, despite competitive performances from Alperen Şengün, Amen Thompson, and Jabari Smith Jr., simply could not close the gap. And while all of that was happening, while Luka and LeBron were feasting in ways that make highlight reels look like home movies, Bronny James was seated comfortably on the bench, in street clothes, watching. His box score read, DNP, coach's decision. That detail, Bronny's presence on the bench in regular clothes while his father was putting on a vintage performance, is precisely what gave the Udoka clip its teeth. The internet does not need much to run with something, but when you combine a profane lip read, a frustrated losing coach, a bench-warming rookie, and the most relentlessly scrutinized father-son duo in the history of professional basketball, what you get is digital wildfire. Instagram reels from accounts like A Genius Takes and Across Sports racked up millions of views overnight. Captions read, "Luka had Ime Udoka begging for Bronny James," and "Udoka started begging JJ Redick." Mainstream sports outlets picked it up. Yahoo Sports and Essentially Sports ran full pieces framing it as Udoka being caught on camera allegedly asking JJ Redick for Bronny James amid LeBron's dominance. The replies on X were pure comedic chaos, ranging from "the disrespect is crazy" to classic sideline shade to elaborate parody videos building on the moment. The narrative was set in stone. And here's where it gets genuinely interesting from a basketball history standpoint, because this is not the first time that Ime Udoka has found himself in a viral sideline moment involving the James family orbit during a Lakers-Rockets matchup. On December 2nd, 2023, Udoka was actually ejected from a game at Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles after a heated sideline confrontation with LeBron James himself. During a close game, the Lakers eventually won 105-104. The sequence was this. LeBron approached the sideline amid a dispute with officials. Udoka directed comments at LeBron and the Lakers bench, reportedly using phrases like "soft boy, stop." LeBron walked over and confronted him directly. Officials assessed double technical fouls, and because it was Udoka's second technical of the game, he was gone. LeBron stayed in the game with his first tech. When asked about it afterwards, LeBron offered reporters his most diplomatic smile and quipped that they had been talking about how much we enjoyed Thanksgiving. Classic. But the underlying heat was absolutely real, and it adds a layer of context to the March 2026 Bronny clip that the internet, to its credit, was quick to pick up on. Udoka messing with the James family during Lakers-Rockets matchups is not a pattern, it's a tradition at this point. The kid who has been fighting this battle since before he played a single NBA minute. To understand why 7 seconds of sideline footage from a regular season game in Houston sent the internet into a full-blown frenzy, you have to understand what the Bronny James story actually is. And the Bronny James story is, at its core, not just a basketball story. It is a story about the burden of legacy. It is a story about the price of growing up as the eldest son of the most famous basketball player alive. It is a story about what happens when the narrative around a person becomes so large, so loud, and so self-sustaining that it becomes impossible for reality to compete with it on equal terms. Bronny James was born on October 6, 2004. He is 21 years old. He is listed as a guard for the Los Angeles Lakers. He was selected 55th overall in the 2024 NBA Draft, a second-round pick, after one abbreviated, emotionally charged year at USC. That year at USC was cut short in the most harrowing way imaginable. On July 24, 2023, during a training session, Bronny James suffered a cardiac arrest. He collapsed on the court. Emergency personnel responded. He was hospitalized. The basketball world, and frankly, the world at large, held its breath. He survived. He recovered. He was cleared to play, but in 2025, Bronny himself admitted in an interview that the incident messed with my immune system in ways that lingered well beyond the hospitalization itself. After coming back from that, after surviving a literal cardiac event before his sophomore year of college, he averaged approximately 4.8 points per game in the games he was able to play for USC, and then he declared for the draft. And this is where the fire started. Because even before that, the whispers were already circulating. Even the McDonald's All-American selection Bronny received in high school had people in NBA evaluation circles quietly saying it wasn't entirely earned on merit, that the last name did some heavy lifting there. And those whispers, once the draft arrived, became a roar.
All right, all fair. Stephen A., what's your reaction to Bronny's comments?
I'm not very comfortable with this subject.
Stephen A. Smith, the most prominent, most outspoken, most watched voice in NBA commentary, spent months carefully navigating this topic. He had heard what the scouts were saying. He knew what the evaluators were muttering, and he understood something that the people defending Bronny were, in his view, refusing to acknowledge. That LeBron James, in one of the most emotionally resonant moments of his public life, had made a very public, very specific declaration that he wanted to play in the NBA alongside his son. And that declaration did not just express a father's dream. It set into motion A chain of events that shone a blinding spotlight onto a young man who, by almost every evaluation standard, had not yet provided the resume to justify it.
Why? Bronny James has done nothing to deserve this scrutiny. His father brought that on him because his father went before the world and said, I want to play with my son in the NBA.
And yet, and this is the part that requires the most intellectual honesty, none of that is Bronny's fault, not a single molecule of it. Bronny James did not ask to be born to LeBron James. He did not ask his father to announce to the world that he wanted to play alongside him. He did not ask to have his McDonald's All-American selection picked apart, or to have his USC numbers published next to draft comparables, or to have every missed three-pointer and every turnover and every DNP broadcast to millions of people who have already decided they know what he is. He simply showed up and kept showing up. Stephen A. was not alone in his criticism. Skip Bayless, in July 2025, after Bronny missed a buzzer beater in Summer League against the Mavericks, tweeted, "Oh well, like father, like son," dragging LeBron's long-debated clutch gene narrative directly into commentary about his son's development. Kendrick Perkins and Rob Parker hammered the nepotism angle relentlessly on First Take and across YouTube. Charles Barkley, as far back as 2024, called the whole situation a bad look for the Lakers. Online, the rhetoric was even harsher. Comment sections full of people calling Bronny a nepotism poster child, riding his father's coattails, a roster filler who only existed in the league because of his bloodline, someone who, in another reality, would never have sniffed a professional basketball court. And Bronny James saw all of it, every word. He admitted as much in a 2025 profile with The Athletic. "I see everything that people are saying, and people think like I'm a f***ing robot, like I don't have any feelings or emotions. But sometimes it fuels me a little bit. The kid is not deaf. He is not numb. He is a human being reading his own criticism in real time and making a choice every single day to use it as a reason to train harder rather than a reason to quit." Now, JJ Redick. Redick's role in this story is both fascinating and occasionally controversial, and it deserves its own moment of focus. Because from day one, Redick made his position on Bronny's merit absolutely crystal clear.
With Bronny, I want to clarify one thing you just said, which is Rob and I did not give Bronny anything. Bronny has earned this.
At the July 2nd, 2024 introductory press conference, LeBron present, Bronny present, cameras everywhere, Redick cut directly to the heart of the nepotism narrative and refused to give it an inch of oxygen. He didn't hedge, he didn't qualify, he made the declaration and then backed it up immediately.
Bronny has earned this, right? Bronny talks about his hard work.
And then he kept going, laying out exactly why the Lakers viewed Bronny not as a PR exercise or a favor to his father, but as a genuine developmental investment.
Bronny has earned this through hard work. And for us, prioritizing player development, we view Bronny as like case study one.
That framing, case study one, is important. Redick was not saying Bronny was a finished product. He was saying Bronny was a project with legitimate foundational skills that the organization believed in enough to invest in over time. And that distinction matters enormously in the context of what came next, because Redick's support of Bronny, while consistent, was never unconditional. He was always willing to be honest, sometimes brutally so. In January 2025, during a back-to-back stretch, Redick flew Bronny up to Philadelphia for a nationally televised game against the 76ers and gave him a career-high 15 minutes of NBA action. Tyrese Maxey was guarding him, or rather, Maxey was hunting him. Bronny finished scoreless on 0 for 5 from the field, committed 3 turnovers, and struggled defensively against one of the league's elite point guards. And when Redick stepped to the podium afterward,
maybe put him in a tough spot, flying up yesterday and, nationally televised game and Philly, all that stuff. It's, he didn't play well, but he's been playing great, in the Stay Ready game.
Those words, "he didn't play well," landed like a grenade, and the reaction from some of the most respected figures in basketball media was immediate, visceral, and pointed directly at Redick's choice to say them out loud.
Yeah.
Like, no, JJ. You put him in Horrible,
no maybe.
horrible situation.
Gilbert Arenas and the Gills Arena crew went after Redick for that post-game press conference choice in a way that was sharp, specific, and, honestly, not entirely without merit. Their argument, when you, as a head coach, put a young player in a difficult situation by flying him in on a back-to-back for a primetime game and then throwing him against an all-star caliber point guard in the first quarter, the responsibility for that outcome is yours. You don't come out and publicly tell the world the kid didn't play well. You absorb that hit for him.
That statement, and you look at the stats, that it's like, you don't do that to that kid. To come on national television and press conference, you take that hit for him.
And here is where the contrast becomes almost painfully clear. On one hand, J.J. Redick consistently defended the principle of Bronny's merit and his long-term potential. He gave Bronny A+ grade for handling his rookie year's scrutiny. He praised G League growth and pointed specifically to conditioning as the one remaining barrier to rotation minutes. The biggest thing for Bronny is that he has to get in elite shape. That's the barrier of entry for him right now. On the other hand, the moment the first real test came on a big stage, Redick's public candidness handed Bronny's critics exactly the kind of quote they were waiting for. That tension between blunt accountability and protective coaching defined Bronny's first 2 NBA years in ways that no highlight package fully captures, because Bronny himself was always thoughtful when discussing his own development.
So, obviously, year 2 here. How is your game developing? Like, where are you right now in terms of what you did this summer and where you are now?
I'm confident in my game.
His confidence is not bravado. His G League numbers bear that out with real data. 15.3 points, 2.8 rebounds, 3.3 assists, shooting 54.6% from the field and 42.1% from 3, with South Bay going 11-0 in games he plays. He is not a project that's stuck in place. He is a project that is, game by game, becoming something.
We got guys, playing ahead of me, and whenever I'm given the opportunity to go out and prove myself, I think that's where I need to lock in. And
that is the awareness of someone who understands his situation without being defeated by it. And that is a quality that, in 2 years of relentless public mockery and media criticism, is arguably more impressive than any single G League performance. But while Bronny was grinding quietly, methodically, and mostly away from the spotlight, the loudest and most human moment in this entire saga came not from a basketball game at all. It came from a Tuesday night in early March 2025, when LeBron James walked over to Stephen A. Smith's courtside seat during a Lakers game and said something that wasn't measured or curated or calculated. It was something that was just a father talking.
He was very, very upset. That wasn't a basketball player confronting me. That was a parent.
That was Stephen A. Smith, the very next morning on ESPN, after a viral video captured the tense courtside confrontation. LeBron James, one of the most calculated, image-conscious, brand-aware athletes who has ever lived, in that moment was none of those things. He was just a dad. The exact words, per Smith's own recounting, were, "Yo, you gotta stop talking shit about my son. You gotta stop fucking with my son. That's my son. That's my son."
He clearly took exception to some of the things that he heard me say, and he confronted me about it.
Smith later called the move weak and some bullshit on the Gills Arena podcast, while simultaneously, in the same breath, acknowledging that he understood the impulse of a protective father. He maintained then as now that his commentary had never been about Bronny the person.
I never would speak negatively about your son. I was talking about you, meaning you, LeBron James. I have nothing but the best wishes for Bronny James.
That distinction between criticizing the father's decision and mocking the son's ability is genuinely important, but it doesn't make Bronny's lived experience of reading every word any less real, because the pipeline from LeBron made a mistake to Bronny doesn't belong has always been extraordinarily short in the media. The two narratives collapsed into each other so completely that for millions of people they became the same thing, and that confluence of nepotism debate, performance scrutiny, viral mockery, and 2 years of DNPs created the exact conditions necessary for the clickbait ecosystem to manufacture something that never actually happened, which brings us, at last, to the suspension. The suspension that never happened, and what Bronny James is actually building. The suspension rumors have been circulating in waves since roughly late 2025, and they all follow the same precise blueprint. Step 1. Someone with a parody or satire account, or occasionally just a large enough following to seem credible, posts a claim that plays directly into an existing narrative people are already primed to believe. Step 2. The post gains traction before anyone can actually verify it. Step 3. YouTube channels, Instagram pages, and content farms package it into a video with an urgent all-caps thumbnail. Step 4. The algorithm does what the algorithm does. The most viral version of this cycle produced a post claiming that Bronny James Jr. has been banned from the NBA after being found guilty in a gambling operation, betting the under on himself every game. Read that again. Betting the under on himself every game. It is obviously transparently satirical. It is a joke built on his low scoring averages, but it spread, genuinely, widely spread, because the narrative it plays into is one that millions of people have been preloaded to accept. And that is the real damage. Not that smart people believed it, but that the emotional logic of it, of course something is wrong. Of course the league will eventually have to do something about this situation, made people feel less resistant to the idea. Then in March 2026, running concurrently with the Udoka sideline clip, YouTube videos with titles about Bronny being suspended after a failed drug test started racking up tens of thousands of views. A satire account posted a fabricated image with a breaking label. The visual language of real news applied to something entirely invented. No NBA investigation, no positive test, no official comment of any kind from the league, the team, or any player. Just a fake image, a fake headline, and a very real algorithm that does not care which of those things is true. There was also the All-Star voting incident in January 2026, where Bronny received 2 official player votes for the All-Star game ballot despite averaging approximately 2 points per game in limited minutes. The internet erupted. Legends on the Run It Back podcast called it illegitimate. Posts demanded the 2 voters be identified and punished. Memes spread suggesting LeBron somehow manipulated the process. Marca covered the controversy. None of it resulted in any formal action, investigation, or suspension. It was 2 player votes on a ballot. 2, in a process that is entirely non-binding for the final selections. But the word controversy attached to the name Bronny James is enough to generate a news cycle regardless of the actual stakes. And then there was the G League collision incident that got deliberately misreported by certain accounts and channels. During a South Bay Lakers game, there was a hard collision involving Bronny that resulted in 2 opposing players being suspended for the incident. Bronny was the victim, the person who was protected by the league's disciplinary action. And by the time that story made its way through the content pipeline and emerged on the other side, a meaningful slice of the internet had it entirely backwards, presenting Bronny as the one who had been punished. That inversion, that flipping of victim and perpetrator, is not an accident. It is the predictable result of a content ecosystem that has been trained by thousands of hours of mockery, criticism, and clickbait to expect bad news from Bronny's direction and to receive it uncritically.
I want to actually start with Bronny.
Yeah.
This past week, he was in Chicago at the Combine.
LeBron James, talking about Bronny in the weeks before the 2024 draft, spoke with the unmistakable warmth and almost overwhelming pride of a father watching his son approach the realization of a lifelong dream. And in that conversation, on the Mind the Game podcast, he said something that stands as both a personal statement and a broader philosophy about how he has approached this whole journey with his son. On Bronny's development through his sophomore NBA season, it's been great, not only as a father, but as a student of the game, to see someone use what he was able to do last in the G League, get more comfortable. I was just super proud of him of the maturation process. And then, in the line that most clearly reveals his entire framework as a parent, for me as a dad, it doesn't matter if he never scores, ever. For me as a dad, I'm just super proud of him, period. That is not the statement of a man who is using his son as a trophy or a PR vehicle. That is a father who survived a deeply imperfect childhood himself, who has spoken openly about not having his own father present, watching his son live out a dream while the whole world screams at both of them, and choosing, day after day, to frame that experience as something worth being proud of rather than something worth defending against. And Bronny, when asked directly about what he and his father have talked about as it relates to expectations in the NBA.
But, just stuff that he's been telling me my whole life, just having that work ethic and coming in and getting your work in and listening to your coaches and being coachable, stuff like that. He's driven into in my head my whole life.
That answer is everything. Measured, self-aware, not over-claiming, not performing confidence he doesn't have. Just a kid who knows where he is, knows what it takes, and is doing the work. And the work, by the numbers, is actually producing results. His NBA averages this season sit at 2.1 points, 0.5 rebounds, and 1.2 assists per game in about 7 minutes per outing. And yes, that puts him at the bottom of the Lakers guard hierarchy in raw production. He ranks last among guards on the team when stacked against Austin Reeves' 20.2 points, D'Angelo Russell's 12.4, Gabe Vincent's 6.4, and Max Christie's 8.5. That's the honest reality. But the dishonest framing would be to compare those numbers without mentioning that none of those players are in their second NBA season, getting 7 minutes a game on a 45-win contender. When you look at historical outcomes for picks in the 50-55 range, players who land in similar situations, minimal minutes, loaded rosters, no real developmental runway, routinely average less than 5 points per game in their first 2 seasons. Many don't stick at all. Bronny, in that context, is not just keeping pace, he's improving. His three-point percentage has jumped from 28.1% as a rookie to 41.4% this season. His field goal percentage went from 31.3 to 39.7. His playmaking is trending upward. His G League performance is genuinely elite for his role. 54.6% from the field, 42.1% from 3, 15.3 points per game in starter minutes with South Bay going 11-0 when he plays. He dropped 31 points in a G League career high game in January 2025. He scored a season high 12 points at the NBA level against the Spurs in February 2026. When you compare him to other Nepo baby cases in NBA history, Thanasis Antetokounmpo, Austin Rivers, Luke Walton, Bronny faces the highest scrutiny by an enormous margin while navigating a situation that is in many ways more structurally difficult than any of them faced. Most of those players had more college production, less famous parents, or were on teams that actually needed them to play. The question of whether Bronny would be in the NBA without his father's last name is one that neither he nor LeBron can fully answer, and they have both, to their credit, stopped pretending otherwise. What they have insisted, consistently and credibly, is that the work is real, that the growth is real, that the grind behind the scenes, the ice baths, the extra film sessions, the 5 a.m. gym visits, the G League assignments that other second-year players might resent, is real. And the real story here, the story underneath the fake suspension headlines, underneath the lip-read clip, underneath the Stephen A. rants and the Skip Bayless tweets and the Rob Parker YouTube segments, is that Bronny James is a 21-year-old kid who survived a cardiac arrest, came back to professional basketball, earned a draft spot, and is now competing in the hardest professional sports league on the planet, while the entire internet has appointed itself his permanent jury. That is not a small thing. That is actually, if you strip away the meme potential and look at it clearly, a remarkable thing. The next time Ime Udoka coaches against the Lakers, Bronny might actually be in the rotation. He might actually be getting meaningful minutes. He might be the guy Udoka's team has to genuinely prepare for. And if that happens, when, not if Bronny's trajectory holds, the clip from March 18th, 2026 will age into something unintentionally prophetic, not mockery, foreshadowing. Bronny James was on that bench, in street clothes, watching everything, taking notes, as he always does. He sees everything. And when his moment comes, and it will, the internet will have no idea what to do with itself. Like this video? Don't forget to explore more similar content through the suggested cards on your screen.